Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Phyllis Jacobson. I'm an administrator with the Commission, and for some reason, my camera doesn't seem to be projecting my image, but we'll let Erin just show while I talk then. So Erin has been talking to you about who can teach these classes, and I'm going to talk to you about a requirement that is not a credentialing requirement, but is applicable to those who are teaching TK classes. And this is known as an apportionment requirement for teachers teaching the TK classes. There is a reference in Education Code, section 48,000, sub G sub 4, and a brand new section 48,000.1, which was just added in June of 2022. And this requirement pertains to classes for which the LEA wants to receive state funding, otherwise known as apportionment, for that particular class. Next slide, please. So the requirement under Education Code 48,000 says that for those teachers who are first assigned to teach TK after July 1, 2015, they have to meet this particular requirement. They have until August 1st, 2023 to meet this requirement. Again, we remind you that this is not a credentialing requirement, but it is a requirement if the district wants to receive funding for that TK class. Next slide, please. So what does this requirement say? In order to receive funding, the TK teacher who was first assigned to teach TK after July 1 of 2015 has to meet one of these following options. They can have 24 units in early childhood education or early childhood development, or both, a combination. Or, as determined by the local agency employing the teacher, professional experience in a classroom setting with preschool-aged children that would be comparable to these 24 units of education. This is an option that is determined by the employer. The employer has to develop criteria for what is equivalent to the 24 units. And then option C is that the teacher can hold a child development teacher permit issued by the commission. So we have some notes here for you. This is not a requirement that can be waived. One of these three options must be met. And my understanding is that the LEA is going to have to report for every teacher teaching TK how they have met this requirement if they are subject to it and the district wants to receive apportionment. The units have to be Carnegie units, that is regularly degree applicable units awarded by a regionally accredited institution of higher education. These are not professional development or remedial units, except that if they are professional development that has been awarded credit from a regionally accredited institution that is degree applicable, then it may count in that instance. And the requirement is actually under the purview of the California Department of Education, not the Commission. And the department has an extensive amount of information about this requirement. It's posted on their UTK website, and we've given you a link here in the slides. Next slide, please. And now I will turn it over to talking about the specialist itself and how that's going to be implemented.
Thanks, Phyllis. So the new PK-3 early childhood education specialist credential is actually a retooling of an existing credential. And the commission is currently completing the regulatory process to enact this credential so that we can begin issuing it and you all can begin offering programs for it. So as we've stated a couple times, it will authorize teachers to teach in PK-3 grades only. The credential is intended to provide a bridge for early childhood educators that might already have a bachelor's or higher degree and have experience teaching in a preschool setting. For child development permit holders that do have that bachelor's degree, they will be able to use that preparation and some of their experience teaching in a pre-K setting towards earning the credential. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. It will provide a bridge for teachers who want that pathway to earn that 24 units of early childhood education, specifically for multiple subject credentialed teachers who might be teaching in TK right now, but need to meet that requirement for apportionment that Phyllis just spoke about. It will provide an incentive and an additional option for them to meet that requirement. So we've ensured that completion of those 24 units can result in issuance of an additional credential for them. And we know that a lot of teachers really care about and like to be dually credentialed. And so this is an additional incentive for those teachers who end up meeting that requirement through 24 units of early childhood education coursework. Again, we're working through the regulatory process right now. We expect the credential to be established in law beginning in early 2023. And preparation programs can begin to be developed for launch in fall of 2023 and beyond, of course. So let's talk a little bit about what the actual authorizations on this new credential will be. For those of you that are familiar with the multiple subject teaching credentials authorization, these will look very familiar. The credential authorizes the holder to teach any and all subjects in a self-contained general education classroom setting, and to also do team teaching or regrouping across classrooms, specifically in preschool through grade 3. The credential will also come with an English learner authorization that will be earned through the preparation program. And it'll be the limited English learner authorization that authorizes integrated ELD and designated ELD within the content area being taught with the credential. So designated ELD within that self-contained classroom, preschool through grade 3. The credential will also be eligible to add a bilingual authorization if a candidate wishes to do that additional coursework. Next slide. So on this slide, you'll see the list of specific requirements that must be met in order to earn the PK-3 ECE specialist credential. So of course, a bachelor's or higher degree from a regionally accredited institution of higher education. The candidate would also need to complete the PK-3 ECE preparation program that's approved by the commission, and it will include the clinical practice component. As well, it'll include the mathematics and literacy TPEs that were recently approved by the commission. A candidate would also need to pass a teaching performance assessment. And right now, the only option for a candidate would be the multiple subject TPA, and it would need to be passed in kindergarten, grade 1, 2, or 3. However, we are working on completion of an early childhood education TPA as well. So once that's developed, a candidate would be able to meet the TPA requirement through that specific ECE TPA. The credential also includes a subject matter requirement, and the commission designated a 24-unit subject matter requirement, and those units specifically need to be in early childhood education or child development. Alternatively, a candidate who holds a bachelor's degree in ECE or child development or a very closely related content area would be able to meet the subject matter requirement as well. So that would meet that first requirement of a bachelor's degree and that fourth requirement of subject matter competence if an individual has a BA degree in early childhood education or child development. And lastly, a candidate would need to demonstrate that their competence in teaching reading. So they would need to pass the RECA examination, or once developed, they would be able to pass the commission's approved literacy assessment. All right, next slide.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the clinical practice requirement that is in the standards. I'm Cheryl Hickey. I'm one of the administrators in the professional services division, and I deal with accreditation and program approval. So we'll be seeing a lot of your program documents as they come in. So the commission really believes that clinical practice is such an important component of preparation. It exists, as many of you know, in the multiple and single subject credential standards. It exists in the ed specialist standards, and it exists in a number of the other standards, PPS as well, and others. So they wanted to make sure that there was a strong clinical practice component within this credential area. And it somewhat mirrors those other teaching credentials in that it requires 600 hours of clinical practice. Now, the difference here is that it requires it in 2 different settings. This is really important. And it's very clear and set forth in the standards as to how those clinical practice hours needs to be done. So 200 of those hours must be in a preschool or TK setting. So PK or TK setting. 200 hours have to be in a kindergarten through 3 setting. And then the additional 200 hours, bringing it up to 600, can be in any of those settings, as long as it's in the P through the 3 setting. What's really important about this, I know some of you that one of the things that the commission said in creating this was we want to be able to have this credential in a variety of different ways. From the traditional 5th year kind of program to the integrated undergraduate preparation program to a residency to the various different kinds of intern programs as well. So all of the various pathways that are available to multiple and single subject and ed specialists are also available in this credential. So you may be asking, okay, I run a residency program. How in the world am I going to make sure that my candidate gets 2 different placements? And yes, it may require some creative thinking and may require the candidate to do some extra work, maybe around summer school to have a different setting, or after school hours, or other kinds of things. But it is possible in both a residency and an intern to make sure that they still get 2 different settings or experiences with 2 different groups of students. The other thing that was really important for the commission is they wanted to really honor those many prospective candidates out there right now with early childhood experiences already. So the regulations require that if someone has 6 years of experience teaching in an ECE setting, and of course there are specific settings that are allowable, that the program must waive 200 of those hours if they are already in a PK or TK clinical practice setting, if they've done work in and around PK and TK. It also allows you to consider another 200 additional hours. We will be obviously working with you to make sure that there's guidance on this and that you understand how and when you can provide this work. There's a lot of language in the proposed regulations that the commission adopted back in August on these. And so we'll be working with you to make sure that it's understandable. But this is not an option. This is a must. So the regulations say shall. So there are 200 of those. If someone has 6 or more years of experience in a PK, TK setting, like a Head Start or another child care center, then you must be assume that they can waive the 200 of those 600 hours, and possibly up to 400. Okay, next slide. Okay, Erin.
Thanks, Cheryl. So another aspect of the proposed regulations that the commission approved in August was a pathway for fully prepared multiple subject credential holders. And that's fully prepared means a multiple subject credential holder that also holds the English learner authorization on their credential. And those folks have a pathway to, again, earn the PK-3 ECE specialist credential by completion of the subject matter requirement, which again is 24 units of coursework in early childhood education or child development. And this would be a pathway that it's a direct application to the commission. So they would not need to go through a preparation program to complete this. It's just folks who want to take that 24 units, may have already taken that 24 units to meet the apportionment requirement, and they can just apply directly to the commission by submitting a completed application, the processing fee, and official transcripts verifying those 24 units.
So I want to highlight some of the funding opportunities to support the preparation of PK3 ECE credential candidates. Now, the first one is something that institutions of higher education can apply for, and that is our Integrated Undergraduate Teacher Preparation Program Planning Grants. It's a mouthful, but it's one of our few grants that actually goes to preparation programs. We just released the request for applications for this grant about 2 weeks ago, and it really gives broad authority in how to use the money in developing and implementing a new undergraduate teacher preparation program. So that the integrated program is where a candidate earns both their bachelor degree and completes the credential requirements at the same time. So hopefully they can finish in 4 years, have less student debt, and be in our classrooms faster. Now, once your program has been approved, there are some additional funding options. And those include teacher residency grants, and there are capacity grants to build teacher residency programs, as well as implementation and expansion grants. The Classified School Employee Teacher Credentialing Program, which provides funding to help people who are already working in school districts as classified employees to earn their bachelor's degree and a credential. Golden State Teacher Grants, which provide up to $20,000 for candidates who are enrolled in a preparation program. And then the Department of Education has been maintaining this called the compendium, but it is a number of different resources that are available, especially through the CDE, but it includes ours as well, for implementing pre-kindergarten, or for implementing transitional kindergarten, but also looking more broadly at universal pre-kindergarten. Next slide.
Sorry, I accidentally clicked one of the links it was trying to open, so we know they're active.
All right, we're going to take a look at the program standards for the PK through 3 ECE Specialist Instruction Credential preparation. These 9 program standards are very similar to other credentials in relationship to the major content areas and structure, with a few new additions that are highlighted highlighted on this. I'll go ahead and highlight those. First of all, we have program design and curriculum. The first program standard, second program standard, preparing candidates towards mastery of the PK through 3 ECE credential, teaching performance expectations. Then the third, clinical practice, opportunities to learn and practice. And an additional one, equity, inclusion, and diversity, which is a new standard that was added to this credential that is different than other credentials. Number 5, we have mentoring, supporting, and assessing candidate progress towards meeting credential requirements. And program standard 6, implementation of a teaching performance assessment, which we talked about. Standard 7 is effective literacy instruction in PK through 3 settings. This is a new standard, along with standard 8, effective mathematics instruction in PK through 3 settings. And the final 9th standard, induction individual developmental plan. Next slide, please. In addition to the program standards, we have the teaching performance expectations for the PK through 3 credential. As was stated with the program standards, these 8 teaching performance expectations are very similar to other credentials in relationship to the domain focused areas and structure, with a few additional domains that focus on literacy and mathematics instruction. So the 8 TPEs comprised of engaging and supporting all young children in learning. Second, creating and maintaining effective environments for children's development and learning. The third, understanding and organizing core curriculum for children's learning. The fourth, planning instruction and designing developmentally appropriate learning experiences for all children. Number 5, assessing and documenting children's development and learning. Number 6, developing as a professional early childhood educator. Number 7, effective literacy instruction for PK through 3 settings. And number 8, effective mathematics instruction for PK through 3 settings. You'll see in the titles, the names of the titles were changed a bit to reflect the developmental continuum for young learners. All right, I'm going to hand it off to Renee.
Okay, now I'm going to do something a little different. I'm actually going to go off the slides, everybody, and I'm going to share screen with you. And I know, Erin, I'm like, uh-oh, doing something different here. And so give me a second while I do this tech piece. Actually, let me call it up first. I'm excited to share a resource with you. I get to spend a few minutes talking to you or talking together about developing and supporting partnerships for preparation. And, you know, everybody who has been in teacher preparation for a long time knows partnerships are absolutely like at the foundation of what we do. And so today I'm going to share one resource. For those of you who don't know, I just joined the commission about a month ago. And before that, I spent 15 years in our community college system. So the resource I'm sharing with you today was developed by Bobby Becca. She's at the Kern Community College District. She's a grant director. I am putting a link in the chat right now if anybody would like to join the website with me while I show it. But I want to show you just something really, really cool that's available if you're interested. Okay. Okay, can somebody give me a thumbs up to let me know that you can see this page that says Teacher Preparation Locator Map? Does it look good? Debbie or David or somebody? Yeah, okay, great.
Looks
Great.
good.
Great. Excellent, thank you. I apologize too. I imagine of the almost 400 people that we have on today, I probably had quite a few thumbs up, but you know how screen only shows a couple people. So thanks for your patience, everybody. So the California community colleges are one piece of the puzzle of the PK3 credential. By all means, when we're talking about partnerships, this is only one segment that we're going to talk about today, but we really are hoping that people are looking into partnerships with their LEAs, their institutes of higher education, really making those connections. And so if you are looking for connections with a community college partner, this is the place to go. When you go to this site, you scroll down. First of all, it says locator map, but before we get to that, we want to show you all the different regions. And within each of these, you can open and it'll give you an idea of all the colleges within that region. Now, one thing to note, these are regional designations that were made by the Chancellor's Office in the community college system. So these regions, the way the regions are designated are not identical between the different education systems. So it's important for everybody to know that. So I see now for some reason, the map part is actually not loading. Of course, I tried this like 10 times. So here's the thing. I was prepared for this. What happens when you come to the locator map? Oh my goodness, I really apologize, everybody. It's not fully loading right now. When you come to the locator map, what happens is you have the opportunity to look up different colleges. And let me show you. Can everybody see this piece of it? And I just switched to more of a micro view. So I apologize that the larger map didn't show. If you go to the website and it doesn't load right away, please reload it. I, of course, reloaded it right before I came on, but it's still not there. But here's what happens. You're literally given an entire map of California. And every single community college that has some form of a teacher preparation program is on that map. And they've got a little designation. So this is an example when I clicked Ventura College, because I live in Santa Clarita Valley. So I know that I'm in the South Coast Central region. So when I went and I looked, I thought, oh, wow, Ventura is a college that I could be partnering with because geographically it's close to where I am. So the great thing about it is on this map, you click on that college or you click on that dot, and there's a legend underneath the dots that shows why they're different colors. It was based on a funding structure from a few years ago. But it gives you the name of the college, and most importantly, the name of the people that you can contact and their contact information. So I know that if I want to partner with child development and education over at Ventura College, I'm going to email Rachel and Deanna. They're two faculty members that lead their department. And also, if needed, Debbie, who's a CTE dean, I believe, if she still has that position. And she's always been super supportive of teacher preparation. The idea here is you're not starting with a blank slate. You literally can have that direct contact depending on where you need to do that outreach and where you want to do that outreach. I hope everybody will take a couple minutes to explore that map. I apologize, it didn't work the way I was hoping to do this like super cool demo, but at least hopefully you can see that there's a place you can go where you're not only going to find the community colleges, but you're going to find exactly who that early childhood education specialist is, teacher prep person on that campus, where you can say, hey, let's have a conversation. Let's meet either virtually or face-to-face and talk for a little bit. And that's what the partnerships are all about. I'm going to be honest. Last week, I had the opportunity to meet with the University of Laverne, Debbie and I, and it was a new person at the University of Laverne. She said, oh, Renee, I'm going to bring somebody into the meeting. I'd like to introduce you. And I said, oh my gosh, Cindy and I, the person she was introducing us to, we had been partnering starting in 2008. So we literally started partnering 15 years ago. And so instead of it being an introduction, it was more like we were coming back and, having a moment together where, oh, great, we're all reconnecting and this is wonderful. And that's what partnerships are about. Once you can get them solidified, a partnership doesn't end when a project ends. A partnership should be about a long-standing relationship that benefits your students, your program, and just overall your community and your region. So, and if anybody ever needs support in terms of finding who the people are that they need to be talking to, please reach out because we are here to help you. So with that, let's head over now to Erin and we'll head back to the slide deck. Thanks everybody for allowing me to jump off for a minute to share that resource.
Thank you, Renee. Good morning, everyone. My name is Erin Sullivan, and I am also an administrator in the Professional Services Division. And one of the things that I get to focus on as administrator is implementation of the Commission's adopted accreditation process. So I am going to take the next few slides to talk about how to begin thinking about offering one of these programs and the steps that you will need to take to submit evidence about these programs and what the Commission will be doing moving forward in order to support you with that, get you the information you need. Before we move into this, I just want to reiterate, and I think it will be an ongoing theme today, is that we don't have this process fully developed right now. We are working on it. Right now, we are kind of at parallel pathways. We're trying to get you information in a timely manner while we're trying to develop this process so that we can be ready as soon as possible for all of you. We know that there are a lot of folks out there that are really chomping at the bit, and that's very exciting, but we need to make sure that we develop a thoughtful and thorough process for approving these programs moving forward. And at the same time, we're moving a regs package, and that is extremely important. We can't approve programs, and have you out there offering programs toward a credential if we don't have the regulations in place. So we're really running a lot of things at the same time. So just keep that in mind, and we appreciate your patience with us while we move this forward. So just, some of the things I'm going to talk about here are going to harken back to things that you've already heard mentioned. As I said, we've got this regs package moving forward. We're hoping for approval sometime in 2023. Fingers crossed, it can be early 2023, but we can't predict the kinds of questions that the Office of Administrative Law might have. In addition, we are really looking at some new standards, and I'll talk a little more about that. So the first step really is so simple. The first step in this process is programs deciding whether or not they want to offer this. It's not a given. And it's not necessary if it's something that your institution's not ready to do right now. It's not as if you have to commit and submit in spring 2023 and there won't be another window. Once these standards are in place and the regulatory package is approved, et cetera, institutions can apply to add these programs to their education units moving forward as long as these standards exist. Only institutions that are commission approved program sponsors are going to be able to apply to offer these PK3 programs. So if you are not a commission approved program sponsor right now, you would have to go through the IIA process of initial institutional approval. And a caveat to that right now is that community colleges are not currently authorized by statute to offer educator preparation. Now, that said, we recognize that our community college friends and partners are have been working in this field of child development and early childhood education for a long time. So those institutions out there that are interested in offering these programs, we're really encouraging you to contact potential partners about putting these programs together. Contact your community college partners or community colleges. If you're out there and you want to be part of this, contact your 4 years. You don't have to wait to be asked. You can go out and talk to your 4-year colleges near you and say, hey, we think you should offer this program and we want to partner with you while you do this. In addition, if you are in an early childhood department at a 4-year or a child development department at a 4-year, you're going to need to work with the education unit at your institution. So reach out to your school of ed. Your ed unit is likely in your school of ed. Reach out to those individuals and those the deans there, the faculty there, and really create a partnership with them, because they have been offering likely some kind of credential program for many, many years, and they are going to be excellent resources in working together with you to put together a proposal for a new program. It's going to be important also that you involve other partners in developing these programs. So you probably, there's, as Cheryl talked about, there is a clinical practice component that involves, some student teaching time in a classroom. So you're going to need to have partnerships with local education agencies where you're going to need to have, available clinical practice settings for these individuals. So you will also need partnerships with your local school districts and your local county offices of education. So a lot of partnership around these programs. Nothing is done in a silo. The connections between the higher ed programs and the LEAs that are going to be accepting these student teachers are so very, very important. And we saw that really acutely during COVID, where institutions were needing to place student teachers and LEAs were not ready for that. So definitely get those partnerships together. You're going to need your faculty to be engaging with those LEAs, to be staying abreast of what's going on in K-12 education. There are standards around that. There are preconditions around that. So definitely get those partnerships going. And then when the commission has direction about what your submissions are going to look like, make sure you follow those directions. That's an easy one, and we know that you'll all do that. But right now for new program approvals, we have a set of instructions that very clearly list the kinds of evidence that we need, how to put that evidence together, how to submit it to us. We will make very clear to you how to submit those new programs. And we'll have, as David mentioned, some additional technical assistance coming up where we'll talk a little bit more about what those submissions will look like. So hopefully we're rolling this out in a very logical manner for all of you. When those programs are submitted, if there are folks out there right now who are joining this that are new to this process, the commission has a board of institutional reviewers. These are individuals who have done program review. They've received some additional training. They've gone on site visits. They are peers, just like you in the field. They are not folks from the commission staff. So they are individuals who are out there running programs, who understand what it's like to have these partnerships, have to place students in student teaching settings, have to offer curriculum, have to oversee their faculty. They are individuals just like all of you. And we are really pleased to have these individuals regularly volunteering to be part of our accreditation process and part of this review process, because that peer review system, I think, is a lot more, it's a lot stronger and it's a lot more meaningful, knowing that you have folks reviewing these programs who really get what it is that you're doing and what you're trying to do. So the commission will, this is our promise to you. We will regularly communicate with you as we move along this process so that you aren't out there wondering what's going on. we will let you know when we are ready to receive your intent to submit applications. So we know that some folks have tried to jump forward already and jump in with both feet. And again, we are so happy that so many of you are ready to go and that you're enthusiastic about this, but we are asking right now that you just wait. We are hoping to be able to start accepting those in January of 2023. It could be a little bit later. We're hoping to not push that out, but please know that a lot of the timelines that we're giving you right here are they're our best guess. They are definitely our highest hope, but there are a variety of things that could delay that, including, of course, our regs package, et cetera. So do be patient with us, but know that we're really trying to make this happen as early as January 2023. So we will let you know when we are ready to start receiving your intent to submit. We recognize that we did put a survey out a few weeks ago asking institutions to let us know if you planned to submit and when you were hoping to start offering those programs. And I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to walk through that survey. It was our best way to sort of try to get a sense of the coming sort of tsunami of programs and really get an idea of how we might move forward with these program approvals, you know, what kind of a workload we were looking at. So thank you so much for helping us get a sense of that workload. As Erin Skubal mentioned, the regulatory package has been submitted to the Office of Administrative Law. That can be an iterative process where the attorneys at OAL will perhaps ask us questions, perhaps tell us that we need to modify something in our package. Maybe we need to modify the way we've written those regulations. So again, that's something we don't have control over. That is something that could push that January 2023 timeline, right? We can't predict. We try to put together the best package possible. We've been doing this for a long time, but we also know we don't know what attorney we're going to get, and we don't know what questions they're going to have. So do be patient with us as we work through that. I mentioned already that we may be reviewing program proposals on a parallel track with those regs moving forward. What that would mean is, for instance, if we feel like we're in a good place to start taking those program proposals, we will let you know. You will submit them, we will start reviewing them, but we can't grant you final approval and say, okay, go, admit candidates, start offering your program, start opening up those classrooms. We can't do that until that final approval comes from the Office of OAL on that regulatory package. We will be determining what needs to be submitted for these proposals. So please know that you won't have to guess. We are going to be very clear about the kinds of evidence that we need, how it should be submitted, and we will put together an instruction document for you, much like the ones we already have on our websites for new program approval and for program review. So if you're curious at all about, you know, what we're currently asking for and how that looks, there are some places on our website where you can see those submission instruction guidelines. And we like to think that they're very clear, and we have been doing this for about 7 years now. So, so it seems to be working really well for the field and for our reviewers. As Deborah discussed when she was walking you through the new standards for this credential, there are 3 standards in this credential that are new, frankly, for all of our programs. So we will be working with existing programs as well as with these new PK3 programs to determine what evidence needs to be submitted for those 3 new standards, which are for PK3, it's standard number 4, which is that equity, inclusion, and diversity standard. It is standard number 7, which is the literacy standard, and standard number 8, which is that math standard. So for all the other standards, clinical practice and program design and things like that, we have a pretty good handle on what kind of evidence needs to be submitted. We are still at the drawing board a little bit, trying to determine what is going to be the best evidence for programs to provide us for that EID, literacy, and math standards. So just letting you know where we are on that. And then finally, I mentioned Board of Institutional Reviewers. So this is a peer review process. Well, guess what, friends? We don't have PK3 credentials on the books right now. So we really, really need folks who are knowledgeable, not just in multiple subject, but also in these PK3, these ECE, these child development environments, to step forward and make yourselves available to be part of this BIR process. So, you know, I guess we can't tell you that, if you're going to submit a proposal for this credential, you have to offer up some faculty to be BIR reviewers, but we can tell you that there's no way we can review all of these programs in a timely manner if you don't make some folks available. So, so please do consider, if you're going to submit a program, try to identify 1 or 2 folks in your department that you feel that you can give some time up to be a Board of Institutional Review member and to review other institutions' submissions for this credential. Typically, the time required for this is 1 to 2 days. Again, we don't entirely know what this review process is going to look like. Are we going to have a big session where we bring everybody together and we work in a big room and you all work on individual programs, or are we going to do it via Zoom? We don't know yet. But I can imagine that at most, it could be like a 2-day in-person process. So just be thinking about, if you have some folks that you can let go of for a couple of days. It's a great professional development opportunity, again, as well as helping to really keep this process very strong as a peer review process. So what can we tell you right now that will help you start to think about, what you need to be gathering, what you maybe need to be getting ready for these submissions. Again, it's going to look a lot like what we already do for initial program review and for ongoing program review. So at a minimum, these are some things that we are requiring now of other types of programs, and we imagine that we will absolutely be asking for these things again at a minimum. So there will be preconditions as well as program standards that you have to respond to. So we are creating an evidence guide for those preconditions. We will, when we post it, we'll announce it in the e-news. Again, a lot of things will come through the e-news. So if you are not signed up for the PSD e-news, please definitely do that. Comes out every Friday. You can read it just for the things you want. You can skip over the things you don't want. But it is our best way to get information out to such a large field here in the state of California. So when we develop that evidence guide, we will post that in the e-news. What currently we require for other programs are things like we absolutely ask for an organizational chart of some kind that lets us know, from the unit head on down, who is going to be in charge of your program development, who's going to be your program director, who's going to be your clinical placement supervisor, who's going to be your performance assessment coordinator. So that's an org chart that lets us know who your folks are in your programs. I see you frowning, Renee. Performance assessment. I thought you were thinking like performance assessment.
Oh no, I'm so sorry, Erin. I'm looking through since I don't have a slide, I'm looking through all the chat right now. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do a facial.
No, I'm always looking at facial expressions, trying to think like, have I said something confusing? So I'll stop doing that.
No, it's in the chat. Sorry, Erin.
That's okay. Something that we're absolutely going to need to see are faculty qualifications, because there are preconditions and standards around the kinds of qualifications that your faculty in these programs need to have. We're going to need to see a course sequence. So, the standards talk about creating a program that has a logical sequence of courses so that candidates can start, from the beginning and build on and start to scaffold on as they move through the program, so that their learning is logical. It makes sense. They don't get overwhelmed, and they learn things and they can practice them. And then they learn things and they can practice them, and they're getting feedback from you along the way. So we're going to need to see that course sequence for the program that you're proposing. We are going to probably ask you for a course matrix. The course matrix is probably going to be one of your most intense pieces of evidence that you'll put together, but it's so key. And you can look at current course matrices again on our website, on our program review website, or webpage on our website. What the course matrix does is it lists the candidate competencies or the performance expectations down the left side. And then across the top of the matrix, you list all the courses that are going to be offered in your program. And then in the body of that matrix, you are going to show us with hyperlinks the places in your program where you are introducing your candidates to these competencies, the places where you are giving them an opportunity to practice these competencies, and the places where you're offering them some kind of assessment on these competencies before they get to a point where they're taking a performance assessment, a commission approved performance assessment. So, we're not expecting that every single one of your classes has, introduced and a practiced and assessed, but across the course of your program, every competency should be introduced to a candidate, having them opportunities to practice that and get some assessment on that. So we will be asking for a course matrix. We're absolutely going to be asking you for evidence related to your clinical practice. What are the hours that you're requiring? Obviously, they need to be at least the minimum that we're asking for you to do in the standards. We're going to ask to see MOUs and partnership agreements. Now, if you are somebody who works with a lot of districts, you may be thinking, my God, do you need to see one from every single one of the 12 districts or the 20 districts that we work with? No, we ask to see your blank MOUs. And what we're looking for in your MOUs is, are you making it clear to your partner LEAs what your expectations are of them and what it is that you're going to do to support your candidates that are in their school placements? So whatever those MOUs or partnership agreements look like, we'll be looking for those. If you are a single district, district, obviously you're not having MOUs with your own schools. We recognize that, but we can work with you on these things later. We're going to see what kind of training materials that you're providing for the mentors that are going to work with your candidates in those student teaching placements. And we're going to want to know about your placement information so that we can see that they're being placed in appropriate settings throughout their program. We are absolutely going to need to see draft or fully approved syllabi for all of your courses. So if you're out there saying we're ready to submit in January, if you don't at least have draft syllabi, we're going to need to see that. And hopefully, for some of you that are early adopters, you might already have fully approved syllabi for all the courses in your programs, but we'll need to see those. We'll need to see blank copies of candidate assessments, rubrics that you use on those assessments, et cetera. Specified information around TPA support. So again, who's your coordinator? Do you have a handbook? How are you going to support candidates as they move towards successfully completing a performance assessment? And then we're going to need to see some information related to common standards about how this new PK3 program is going to be integrated into the education unit at your institution and how that unit is going to provide resources and oversight and support for this new program at your institution. And again, that was a lot. We will have technical assistance when we get that full evidence guide together, and we will be able to walk through this, take your questions, and talk about these evidence pieces. So as I mentioned, and I just really want to reiterate this, because again, we know that there's a lot of folks out there that are ready to go, and we are not fully ready to go. So some of the things that we still need to look at and that will add evidence, elements to the list that I just went over are, what are we going to ask for in order to determine that literacy is being appropriately covered within your program, that mathematics is being appropriately covered, and that diversity, equity, and inclusion is being appropriately covered. We are currently working on creating submission instructions for these new PK3 credentials. We're hoping that these will be available for you late in December, and we will make them available on our website. And as I mentioned, we will announce that in the PSDE news. So hopefully we'll find a variety of ways to get it out there. But if you're watching the website, carefully and you're hitting refresh every day, once those are posted, you'll see them. But I promise you, we will put something in the e-news. And typically when we run something in the e-news, we run it for, 3 or 4 weeks. So don't feel like if you don't see it in 1 week, you can go back the next week and, and look in the continuing items. In addition to, submitting evidence, having it reviewed by BIR members and receiving somewhat of a green light from the commission, that final green light has to come from the Committee on Accreditation. We have already had a discussion with the committee. We had we gave them a brief notice at the October meeting that it is possible that we may need to pull together a special meeting for the COA. They have regularly scheduled meetings, but we don't want to hold up approval of these programs. We don't want to hold up you getting started. So if need be, we can hold a special meeting of the COA just to get final approval for these programs, so that then you have that final green light that you can get started and that you can start admitting candidates. But until that, COA decision and the regs package and all of that, but until that COA decision, you don't want to start admitting candidates. And again, as we've talked about, we will have some additional webinars where we can walk you through some of these things so we can give you smaller bites, right? So we'll have additional webinar to talk about that literacy standard in your programs. And we will absolutely have a webinar where I'm sure I know you'll see me again. You'll probably also see Cheryl and some other folks, where we'll talk about the evidence that we want, how to put it together, how to submit it, and we can answer some questions. So be watching the e-news again for announcements about all of these things. And now I will pass it to Cheryl.
Yeah, so you will definitely see both of us a lot, unfortunately, for better or for worse. The reason why we went and provided you with what we're going to be looking for, at least identifying what we know right now, is to get you started, to get you out there while we're doing all of the things that we need to do to get this credential up and running and make it, legally on the books and all of those kinds of things. We know that at least that you have the PK3 handbook that is now posted on our standards webpage. So ctc.ca.gov, go to program sponsors and look for standards. The PK3 handbook that includes all of the preconditions, the standards themselves, and the TPEs are available for you to go back and to work with your faculty, your partners, your community colleges, and to really sit down and think about your program and designing your program so that we are getting these programs up and running as quickly as we possibly can, you doing what you need to do on your end and us doing what we need to do on our end. We know that this is only the initial conversation that we're having, or webinar that we're having. So one of the reasons we created this survey is so that we can come back on December 2nd, categorize your questions, answer as many of them as we possibly can on December 2nd from 9 to 10 a.m. And we will have a Zoom link just like we had this time. We'll send it out in the PSD e-news, and somebody might want to drop in our chat how to get on the PSD e-news if you're not already subscribed to that. That's where most of our information will be housed. And so we'll have that meeting on December 2nd, where we'll answer as many questions as we possibly can. We are also having discussions about at least 2 more webinars. The first one being, what to submit, really getting into the details of what Erin was talking about today. Once we have a really good idea about the literacy standards, the DEI standards, and the numeracy standard, as well as any other things that we might make that are unique about this credential. We gave you our best thinking at this point in time, but we are going to be fleshing all of that out in the next few weeks. And so we will have a document that is specific to the PK3 credential that are directions for submitting a document or a proposal with your evidence. So it'll be very clear what you need to provide. So in addition to the December 2nd, somewhere around the 1st or 2nd week of January, we plan to have an IPR, initial program review session, to walk through, what kind of evidence we need and to start thinking about submitting documentation. And then we are also going to have a digging deep into the literacy standard on PK3. And those 2 webinars will probably be very closely timed, maybe even on the same day. They will be recorded and available for you afterwards, of course. But we are really needing to take some time on those literacy standards. Sort of at the same time as we were building this PK3 credential, there was legislation that came down from the legislature and the governor, SB 488, dealing with the teaching of reading and literacy. And so what is in the PK3 standards on that literacy one are those things that are mandated by SB 488. And those credentials that are coming in, those credential programs that will come in early in 2023 will be the first ones out of the gate to be compliant with the SB 488 requirements. So that's why we need to take some time to really think about that standards and to talk about what kinds of evidence will tell us that the program is aligned with those new standards. So a lot coming down the pike. We are also thinking about, do we need to have one specifically on the math standard? And also the DEI. So there are things that are going to be coming, and we're working on all of that at the same time while we're trying to work on the regulations and trying to get you as much information as we possibly can as early as we possibly can, so you can go do what you need to do on your end. And David, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Cheryl. So first of all, thank you to everyone for coming today, for your interest. We've already had at least 50 questions submitted to that form that we posted. That really will help us, as Cheryl said, organize our answers for you so that we can give you really thoughtful and coherent advice on how to move forward. We do have some additional contact information for you. So for questions about the child development permit and anything related to credentials, we have a credentials email. We have a special email we have had for a while, a separate email set up for early childhood education related questions. We're providing a link here for the PK3 credential requirements, program standards, and TPEs. And then for questions relating to the implementation of universal pre-kindergarten in schools and districts, here's a link to the CDE website. So I remember seeing a question in the chat about what about implementation of universal pre-kindergarten, universal TK. CDE is providing just a wealth of resources on that, and we are really happy to be partnering closely with them on the rollout of not only universal pre-K, universal TK, but also looking at the pre-K through 3 space and making that a coherent, developmentally appropriate experience for children. So again, please submit questions to the form that we submitted. Maybe someone can put that link in the chat one more time. Please submit your questions there before November 28th. That will allow us some time to prepare for the December 2nd webinar. So please join us at that webinar. If you are not able to make it, we will be recording it and posting it. And just as we will be posting this webinar as well as the presentation here. So Renee, you look like you're going to say something.
Yeah, David, I've been trying to cut and paste from the PowerPoint into the chat. So I'm sorry, it's not working right now to get these live links that we have on this last slide. But the slide deck plus the recording will be posted to the CTC website, correct?
Yes.
We want to make sure everybody has access. So I'm sorry I don't have those live in the chat right now, everybody, but we'll get that posted as soon as we're able to.
Right, and we're also working on a specific PK3 web page on our website so that all of the resources will be housed in the same spot. There'll be links to the IPR, links to the standards, those kinds of things. So hopefully that will be up soon.
And I just wanted to say and offer my apologies. We did not click record at the very beginning of this presentation. So the slide deck will be made available, but I think we were probably 10 minutes in before we clicked record. Apologies, folks. A lot of cooks in the kitchen up here and nobody decided who was gonna go ahead and turn the heat on. But I think the slides are pretty clear, and it was just the initial, it was just sort of those initial slides, so.
So again, thank you everyone for coming, and we look forward to working with you very extensively in the future as we implement this retooled, basically new credential. It's very exciting.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting unless staff wants to stay on. Yep. Okay. Thanks, everyone.